sales organization, you want 60% or better of your business coming from referrals.
And so now I'm learning that things are not so straightforward like that. That's coming with time, maturity, emotional intelligence.
I started getting into the environment of hunting at 7.
Oh, wow.
Because I started to shoot the bow, bow and arrow and learning that.
What I learned is that people don't like the scripted version of you.
Well, guess what? That building was 100% leased, fully spoken for prior to certificate of occupancy.
I think that people don't see that. They just think, like exactly how you said, like it's just like, oh, I just woke up here.
There's two sides to passion, right? There's a harmonious side and there's an obsessive side.
Sometimes you expect the punch because that leaves the person open. So, I knew where to take my hits. I knew when to duck.
He looked at me straight in my face and told me, listen, I'm good whether you make it or you don't. I'm good. You're not.
Welcome to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. Today's guest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and forever will be, there will always be the bottom line. This is making a comeback. So I want to talk to people today. It's just a couple of things you got to understand. I'm going to segment this thing because I do so many things. And believe it or not, they're all related. Okay. So I've vertically integrated my entire freaking business. Everything is related, whether you believe it or not. It's not like I'm doing 150 things. Like a lot of people think I'm doing a lot of different things. No, it's all the same. It's all centered around coaching, right? Number one. Number two, it's all centered around development, team building, right? And there's components to everything that I do. So I have to do this for you, right? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about real estate. I think I'll put out another one and we'll talk a little bit about fatherhood. And then I'll put out another one and we'll talk a little bit about recruiting. You might find a little bit of recruiting in the real estate. Anything that has to do with sales coaching, you're going to find some recruiting in there. So there's going to be some ingredients, right? But one of the reasons I want to share this article with you today, and I want to talk about it. And you'll find this on Inman, all right? And it's a really good article. I think it was June 24th was when this article, I guess, was posted on Inman's website. I'm going to share it with you, how a top agent knew it was time to build a team. It's a really good article. And I think the most important thing that I tell people, it doesn't matter which sales industry you're in, you're always going to need a team. You can't do these things by yourself. I mean, you can if you want to, but it's going to be extremely stressful and you won't grow, you won't scale. You need a team. You need a productive team. When you get a team in place, you get constructive criticism and feedback from your clients, from the market, and you'll know how to expand and how to service your clients, right? So if you have a client-centered business, then you want to have an effective, system and effective processes. You want to have standard operating procedures. You want to make things work, right? In the best interest of your clients. So having an actual, standard operating procedure and SOP, if you have, effective systems and processes in place, is going to come from you learning more about your market and learning more about your clients' needs. And that way you can train your team around, how to service those people, right? How to service your clients. So let's get into this article because it's a really good one. I want to share some points with you, right? The team structure. And this is the other thing I do. A lot of times I talk to people when it comes to recruiting and team building that, you have to have a foundation in place, right? Or when it comes to systems and processes that they can just use, that they can implement, that they can learn, and they can grow from. You know what I mean? And it's got to be duplicatable. Otherwise, you spend too much time trying to reinvent, the wheel. And it's like, no, maybe you can innovate around some things. Maybe you need to update some systems and you need to update some processes. But as long as you have something in place, that you can share with the team, right? And Canva is really helpful with that today. Canva, and there's other, marketing tools that you can use. You can create like a pitch deck, a slide deck real quick that you can share with your team so that you can really start building, right? So let's get into it, right? This is going to be specifically for real estate, but I want to be honest with you. This applies to just about every independent contractor, every independent contractor, every, I want to say every business model that you might have. You're going to have a team, and that you're going to use a team. What's written in this article is going to be very, applicable to anybody working in a team environment. All right. So let's do this. How a top agent knew it was time to build a team. The team structure can help industry professionals take businesses to new levels, especially with the backing of a supportive brand, right? The leader of the number 3 Remax team in the US explains why. So let's get into it, right? Every productive real estate professional follows a unique path to success. For some, it's the company of like-minded go-getters who share the same passion for achieving goals. That's where the real estate teams come into play. Not just real estate teams, any team, okay? You want to be around like-minded people. The team structure is an effective way for a group of real estate agents to help each other reach new heights in business. Each member brings differing skills, areas of expertise, years of experience, and ideas to the table. But how does a team start? Usually with the spark of entrepreneurship from an agent dedicated to leading others and ready to scale their business. Now, you can find this in your respective industry. You can find this in your office. You can find this in your, in your environment, wherever you are right now, right? You can find that there's going to be somebody, this is what, and I've already categorized them as your non-hitters, your heavy hitters, and your hitters, right? Your non-hitters, your hitters, and your heavy hitters, okay? It's all about levels of production, levels of productivity, right? It's all about, who's motivated the most and how are they motivated? How consistent are they, right? And how often can you rely on them to produce, right? Their results, right? And to be results driven and results oriented, right? Your non-hitters are people who just kind of they're working a part-time job. They're in the industry. They're trying to make a little bit of money, but they haven't really figured out, how to stay consistent. So, they need to go get money from, something, a more reliable source. So you find them, working part-time jobs or full-time jobs, and they do part-time, side hustle. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking anybody doing that. I started that way when I was in real estate as a real estate agent, right? And I really started, developing the skills as I was going along, but I needed to develop those skills and I need to, learn as I go. And I wasn't earning, but I had bills. So I get it. I myself had a full-time job when I first started selling real estate. And then I kind of moved from, full-time working for not-for-profit into full-time real estate once I started learning the markets and I started getting out there and I started going to team meetings and I started talking to different team leaders. And then I started to see what I could do and I can personalize it and make it my own. Then I started to really, I didn't even, I joined the team. But I joined the team because that was the fastest way for me to learn. I had to be around producers. I had to be around people that were making the phone calls, having the tough conversations, right? People that were lead generating, people that were converting those leads. I had to be in those circles so I could learn the fastest. Now, people have different learning styles and they have different, levels to, how they produce and how they learn. But at the end of the day, if you surround yourself with like-minded people, you're going to learn faster, right? Now, the other thing is not just, theoretical, just reading books and watching YouTube videos. When I started out, there were no YouTube videos, right? There were barely any books on the subject on how to convert a lead, right? Or even how to generate a lead. It was very hard. We literally had to go out there and, put out, signs in the streets, right? To get people interested, in whatever we were doing. When it came to real estate specifically, the Craigslist ad, you could post a Craigslist ad for $6, right? And then, you generate the leads that way. So the more money you spend on posting the ad, the more leads you're going to generate. But now you have to convert those leads. So I remember me working at Manhattan Apartments when I really first got my feet wet at Manhattan Apartments, it was like a boiler room setting. You have one hand on the phone and, the other hand, you're waving people into the office, right? From the elevator, and you're just trying to get people to come. But if the phone rang, that was, an actual phone line for Manhattan Apartments itself. And it was people who were looking to rent apartments in the city, right? And we were renting apartments from, I want to talk about from upper Washington Heights, the Cloisters, all the way down to the Lower East Side. You know what I mean? So the city is ours, you know what I mean? And we were taking people out all over the place. And at that time, owners were paying, half of the broker's fee. So you're talking about maybe 6.5%, and we will collect the rest from the applicants, right? So being surrounded around the winners, being surrounded around team leaders, being part of a team helped me to reduce that learning time and cut that learning curve in half, and really just get me out there. What really helped me a lot was just the fact that I like people, and I could talk to people, and I can understand people, and I can identify their needs, and they can confide in me and tell me what they're looking for. It helped me with my pre-qualification process, right? And so being part of that team setting helped me kind of expedite that whole process, right? Back in the day when I was working on eyeglasses, and I was in An apprentice, it was kind of like just watching and watching and watching and reading and reading and reading. I used to be an optician, and I used to work under an optometrist, right? And you kind of get a lot just by watching, but you get a different sense and a different way to implement when you're actually doing, right? So being in a team environment and building a team and learning from a team, not only helps you cut the learning curve in half, but it also helps you become more productive and help kind of get you immersed in what needs to be done so that you can start to actually be productive and learn, the basics on how to, get business rolling, right? How to generate, convert, and how to, cultivate leads. You know what I mean? All right. So more and more today, what you're finding is that more agents are wanting to, either build a team or be part of a team and just collect a percentage of a deal versus working the entire deal themselves, right? So it's like the saying, I know when I was first started out, it was like you either co-broke or go broke. Now it's the difference is like, if you're in a team and you can get, and you're focusing on, higher price points and you get a percentage of that deal, you're in a good position to win, right? So you're going to see a lot more team settings as we go, over the next 10 years. You're going to see more team settings, right? Let's just go a little bit more into it, right? I'm going to do this because like a lot of this is, you got to apply a lot of this because it's like the people who are winning right now, they're practical people, right? And you have to have that practical mindset. You got to be a pragmatist in practice. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to see more people want to not only build teams, but also want to lead teams, right? And get people to join their teams, right? Without having to carry the risk of the overhead of being an actual broker or, having to open up your own shop, right? So this is very popular. This is becoming very popular and becoming more common, especially with all these changes that the real estate industry is going through right now, right? So here's a guy. We got a guy named here. His name is Robert Dikansky. I don't want to chop the guy's name up, but I think it's Dikansky, Robert Dikansky, for example, who leads the Robert Dikansky team with Remax First Advantage in Clark, New Jersey. His team comprises of nearly 50 members and under his vision operates in a results-driven collaborative environment. They rank number 3 top producing Remax team in the US. Now you got to look at the shop itself, okay? Remax is a very big brand, widely recognized throughout the country, right? So Remax is a huge brand. Any agent that works under Remax is a representative of Remax, right? So you actually start to develop your brand based off of your agency's brand, right? Now, what you get today is you get a lot of boutique shops. And I started out in Manhattan Apartments was not a boutique shop, but it was a widely recognized brand in Manhattan when it came to apartment rentals. Right. The one that I started out at before I ended up at Manhattan Apartments, I was at Platinum Properties, and Platinum Properties I would say was more boutique than Manhattan Apartments, right? Because we did a lot of high rise open listings, but high rises and more at that time, there were more doorman buildings, more amenities, that's the kind of like the inventory we focused on, right? And those deals were harder to close because of all the amenities and all the people, the applicants, they had like all these expectations, and they were just really picky. You know what I mean? So and then you got to kind of like know the crowd. You got to be part of that crowd, right? And you kind of have to be available at their beck and call. And I didn't really, at that time when I was starting out at Platinum had Platinum Properties over down, I think it was at 30 Wall Street at the time, right? But they had a really good training platform when it came to just getting leads, and it came to going out there and pounding the pavement and taking pictures and posting ads. And I learned a lot of that, and it was a really nice polished office. Everybody wore suits, and women wore suit pants and dresses, and it was different, right? And it was kind of like a higher end, customer base, you know what I mean? Client base. So, but I didn't get any deals done. I did a lot of pounding the pavement. I did a lot of taking pictures and previewing and, going from, lower, what was that? FIDI, Financial District, all the way up to like the Upper West Side, not even Upper West Side, like more and more so just the West Side itself. But while the West Side was going through development, like the High Line wasn't there just yet, right? It was still like, being proposed. And I think they were trying to like figure out what to do with that High Line, with that railroad and all. And the West Side was still being developed, right? So there was actually a shuttle you could take, I think, somewhere And it would take you, I think it was like on 9th Avenue, and on 8th Avenue, you could take a shuttle from 8th Avenue to like further west side, right? To the end, you know what I mean? And that shuttle, there were new construction buildings being built there. And you can preview those, and you could take pictures, you could post them on Craigslist, and then your phone would ring 2 or 3 days later, and then you can convert those leads. Well, a lot of those leads, they had like 3-month move-in dates. They could move out in like 3 months from their current apartment. They weren't hungry, they weren't really ready to move. They just kind of wanted to see what was the inventory, and they were kind of like, thinking further down the line. So I needed a deal fast, and I was just, kind of wanted to, I would see people, other agents who were doing these walk-ups. And I was like, well, how am I seeing this guy doing like another walk-up? I'd see like the same agents, and they were doing these walk-ups, and they were on the way to my high-end, new development property, right? And the funny part was, at that time, I think it was Hell's Kitchen, you get a lot of walk-ups over there. There was a lot of inventory, the Hell's Kitchen area on your way to the further west side, right? And I'd say, I see the same people over and over, and I didn't understand it. And one of the guys explained it to me. He's like, I just do these walk-ups. These walk-ups are a lot easier. I make a lot more deals. I make them happen faster. And these are the people who don't want the amenities because they can afford the amenities. They just want to be, close to the train, or they don't mind walking. And then you're talking like, 10th Avenue. It's like the 2 long avenues. The next, avenues down is like 8th Avenue for you to get onto, to get to the train, right? Or on 42nd Street. So they didn't mind trooping it. They just didn't care for the amenities, right? They went further west, and they had to pay, less because they didn't want the amenities, and they would live like, on the 3rd floor, on the 4th floor of a walk-up, no problem, because they're paying less, but they're in the city, and they have the convenience of walking 2 avenues down to the train station. So I kind of figured out, what, maybe I'm in the wrong office, I'm in the wrong shop, and I need to, maybe get realistic and start getting some deals done if I really wanted to get deals done. Now, mind you, when I first stepped into real estate, I had no intention of doing rentals. I wanted to be a sales guy. I wanted to do sales and only sales, right? And so I really wanted to do that, but then you got to get your feet wet with starting out with rentals. So that's why I joined the team, and I ended up at Platinum Properties, and then I went from Platinum Properties over to Manhattan Apartments. And in Manhattan Apartments, that's where I joined another team where I learned a lot more about like, just how to convert and how to move these deals and how to get it done at a faster pace and actually meet with people. Because that was my thing. I wasn't meeting with people when I was at Platinum. I started meeting with people immediately my very first day when I was over at Manhattan Apartments. I was part of a team of like maybe 4 or 5 agents, right? And I made the 6th agent, right? And they were all meeting with people, and I was like going through the phone book and calling the leads that people weren't calling on, and I was converting those leads and getting them into the office, and I was getting paid 5% for that, 5% for a showing, and another 5%. I can make 15% on a deal if it closed, if I collected the paperwork, right? And I went and I collected all the paperwork. So I would do that, and I would, that team setting got me actually, moving a lot faster than just going out, previewing, taking pictures, and posting ads, right? So that's what, what you get when you're with a big brand. You get that recognition right off the bat, that brand recognition, and then you can build your brand based off that brand recognition, which I didn't have when I was at Platinum, okay? And I didn't have it when I was at Manhattan, but Manhattan was recognized for the brand, right? And I wasn't focusing on building my brand. I was just focusing on, on Manhattan Apartments brand, and they were known for rentals throughout the city, okay? So now today's market you have a lot more opportunity available to you because you can build your brand. You don't necessarily have to be at an agency where they have a recognizable brand, so long as your brand is recognizable, right? So the fact that these guys are part of a huge brand, Remax, nationwide, okay, and he's got 50 agents under his belt, within his team, right? I mean, you can't lose there, right? And they rank top 3. So like, here's the thing about Remax you have to understand. They already have systems and processes in place that most agents can benefit from using, right? And those are the agents that you're not gonna, you can be a new agent, but the agents that are mostly with Remax, and they've been with Remax for a long time, they have seniority, they're more seasoned agents, they know how to, cut corners in a way that a new agent doesn't know how. And I'm not saying cut corners in a bad way. I'm saying like how to take a lead from 8 phone calls to 4 phone calls, having more quality driven, conversations versus, calling 10 times and saying, hey, are you ready? 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 No, putting the why and the how in the conversation to collapse the time frame. A more seasoned agent knows how to do that, right? And they're also more focused on relationship building and networking and generating more referrals, whereas a new agent doesn't even have a leg to stand on just yet. They're still trying to figure out the industry itself, right? So to have 50 people on his team and being part of a nationally recognized brand, right, helps him not only manage that team but also ramp up production, which we're going to get to. So one thing we could take away from this so far is that we want to ask ourselves how recognizable is your brand in your local community, right? And if it's not that recognizable, what do you need to do to increase that brand recognition in your local community from 2 standpoints? One, on an external standpoint, so like clients need to know, buyers need to know your brand, right? Sellers need to know your brand in the local community, and agents need to know your brand in their local community so they can join your agency and start, working under your brand, right? And start developing their brand if they don't have that brand recognition just yet, right? And, the boutique shops are really good at doing that because they know their local market better than, one of those bigger brands who might be stepping into a smaller market, right? And it just doesn't make sense a lot of times in those markets for the bigger brands. Like you don't see a Remax in like the hood. Like you just don't see it. It's not that common. And I'm saying it because I'm being honest, like it's not as common for you to see a Remax in the hood because it's it's just a different community. And, where you find bigger brands are areas where there's more commercial activity, right? Where there's more commercial activity, where there's more higher price point, higher income, different tax brackets. That's where you find the bigger brands, right? But in the areas where there's lower tax brackets, lower income, and there's a lot of gentrification going on, it's a perfect place for you to start building your brand and for you to really focus on the local needs of the community so that you can increase brand recognition, right? In the local community, right? So let's move on to where, all right, let's talk about how he was ready to ramp up production, right? He says, I've always had a hunger inside me to never stop making professional progress. That's why starting a team seemed like the natural next step for me. Dekansky says, I don't want to chop this guy's name up, but I think it's Dekansky, yeah. I really wanted to take my career to the next level. Dekansky's real estate career began in 2002 when he was a high school graduate with entrepreneurial dreams. In the first 5 years in the industry, he built a track record of success and became a high-achieving local professional. As an individual agent pushing his own limits, he started identifying support roles that would bolster his business and increase overall productivity. In 2007, Dekansky joined Remax and began hiring others for those roles under a team structure. And he says, I think my edge as a team leader is I've been there with virtually every challenge my agents face. I can relate to it and help them with it. Okay, so this is where I think a lot of people struggle, right? And I hear this when I do my recruiting calls and I talk to people about recruiting, and we try to figure out how can we help them scale. What does recruiting look like? What times do you have available to interview people, right? I ask these questions, and then what I figure out, a lot of people, in the beginning it was like, I don't have time. I don't have time to train people, or I've been burned in the past, or whatever it is, right? And you listen, this is part of the game. Like if you want to build a team and you want to grow and you want to scale, you're going to run through this. This is going to happen, right? You're going to get through a few bad apples, and that's part of the game. But then when you start hiring good people and you start, building your team, people are going to want to start stealing from you. They're going to want to start poaching your people, right? Your competitors are going to want to offer, your top producers, incentives, perks to get them to join the team, right? It's happening all over in every sales industry, pretty much in every industry that does happen, where it's hard to find top talent. It's hard to find the best people. You know what I mean? So, this happens. I think Yahoo lost Marissa Mayer, right? At some point to Google. I'm not sure. I got to double check that, but that's like an example. Let's just double check that real quick. Where was Marissa Mayer first? And then where did she end up? I know that she was poached. and you can look this up yourself, right? But this is just like an example. Let's look at Marissa Mayer. Is she former CEO of Yahoo? Yeah. So she used to be at Yahoo. Okay. Where is she now? As an American business executive investor, who was the president, she was president of Yahoo, who served. So where's she now? Now she's with Google. Now she's the usability leader and key spokesperson for Google. You see what I'm saying? So Marissa Mayer, her name is Marissa Ann Mayer. She's an American business executive and investor who served as president and chief executive officer. Okay, so she was president and chief and CEO of Yahoo from 2012 to 2017. And then Google poached her. She was longtime executive, usability leader, and key spokesperson for Google. And then later on, she founded Sunshine, a startup technology company. So now here's what you got to understand, okay, when it comes to building the team. And this is a perfect example right here. This is top talent right here, okay? And it's at a very high level. I know it's on a very high level, but if you're hiring the right people and you're training the right people and you're building the best people and, they're learning from you, two things are going to happen. Either they're going to stay and they're going to continue to help you grow and scale, or they're going to leave and do their own thing. But you should be happy if they leave and started their own thing, so long as they're not taking anything from you and they're not your direct competition. You can go into non-competes and all of that. But when what we're really talking about is training people up, okay? And training people up to a point where they can help you take your business to the next level by you helping them get to the next level themselves, right? And that's what it's really about when it comes to recruiting. That's what it's about when it comes to coaching. That's when it comes to scaling and team building. It's really about how can I help you get to the next level, right? And then in that process of you helping them get to the next level, they're helping you get to the next level. It's a quid pro quo, if you want to call it that. You know what I mean? And that's really what happened with Marissa Mayer. She was the CEO of Yahoo, left Yahoo, and then went to Google, and then left Google, learned her, and she was there for a while. She was at Yahoo for 5 years, 2012 to 2017, and then she left, and then went to Google. I'm not sure when she left Google, and then she started her own Sunshine startup tech company. Why not, right? She has the infrastructure and the know-how, okay? And it says now she runs an AI startup called Sunshine. So she had the foresight to go in that direction, right? Because she saw where it was going. And she didn't want to give anybody any more of her talent. She wanted to keep her own talent and recapture more of her time and start building her own brand, right? And that's what it's about, right? So let's just say Marissa Mayer now runs an AI startup called Sunshine, which raised $20 million in 2020 to simplify and learn from people's digital address books. Fortune reported, subscribe to the Fortune next to the lead, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so at the end of the day, some people are afraid to recruit because they're like, I'm just going to lose them, or, I can't keep people, or, they lose the vision is what happens. And you kind of want to keep the vision. You want to keep the vision strong. You want to keep it consistent, but then you also want to look at where your industry is going to be in the next 10 years, right? And that's enough foresight for you to make a decision to start training your team from 10 years for the next 10 years, right? And reverse engineer from 10 years, okay? Now, Dukansky started his career back in 2002. So he's been through everything. Okay, he's been through every rejection. He's been through every industry change. He's been through shop to shop. He's been through, regulation. He's been through errors and omissions. He's been through different markets. He's been through so much from 2002 to 2024. There's probably nothing he cannot train his agents. There's probably no expectations that he can't manage. He can train his agents under just about everything. But I'm pretty sure he's not doing it all himself when he is has been in the game for this long, and he's got 50 people under, on his team. I'm pretty sure he has a infrastructure in place, where he has maybe like an associate broker, an operations manager, or, a transaction coordinator. He has everything in place that he needs so that everybody can, feel like they're all getting the attention they need when you have that many people on your team, 50 people on his team. And he's not carrying the risk of, having to open up his own shop. He's a team leader, it says here, right? So let's keep going, right? And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is like, look, I get it, right? It's going to be tricky. You got a lot of people to train, but you shouldn't have to be responsible for training everybody. That's what I say. One of the first things that I say when I'm, having, when I'm taking on new coaching clients, like agency owners are like, okay, your team development sounds good. Your agent development program sounds good. Tell me what that would look like. How often, the frequency and the consistency, what would that look like? Right. And that's really what I'm doing. I'm taking that responsibility off of their hands, and I'm kind of like helping them alleviate some of that stress by offering them and providing them the agent development and real estate sales coaching program. And through those conversations, behind the scenes, what's happening is peer-to-peer coaching. Like, these guys are helping each other out. They're helping each other close deals. They're helping each other pitch deals. They're helping each other cultivate leads. They're helping each other, negotiate contracts. They're helping each other, right? Based on what we've learned and what we came up with on these coaching calls, right? So what does that look like for you, right? Like, what do you have in place at your office to train your people? How often are you guys training? Is it coming from you and you only, or do you hire speakers? Do you hire, professionals, the experts from, every avenue, right? From your lending side, from your title side, from your, from your team building side. Are you hiring the experts? Are you talking to the experts and inviting them into the office to sit down with your agents, to sit down with your people? It doesn't have to necessarily just be real estate, right? It could be anything. If you're in solar sales, if you're in, in tech sales, if you're in SaaS, sales, if you're in, it doesn't matter, right? If you're in if you're selling medical devices, if you're selling health insurance, you're selling life insurance, who are the experts that are coming into your office to meet with your people and talk to your people, to tell them about what's going on in the industry and how they can, use what's going on, the changes in the industry to increase their business, right? To monetize and to capitalize off their business, right? What's going on with your vision as the visionary? What's going on with your vision? What's going on with your drive? What's going on with your motivation, right? These are all things that I think, that he touches on, and that helps him build his team. And let me tell you something. What you put out is what you're going to get back in return. So if you're putting out that negative energy, people are going to leave. They're not going to want to stay with you because they're not getting the support they need. But if you're putting out that positive energy, I'm not talking about that cheesy positivity, but like real positivity, where it's like, look, this is where we were at last year around this time. This is where we're at this year. This is where we're headed. You start looking at projections. This is who capped out. This is why he capped out. These are the deals. These are the markets, right? This is what's been closing. This is our price points. Here, whatever it is in your local market, whatever it is that you need to identify and then you need to recognize and reward, you want to talk to them more about that so they can understand how they need to make adjustments in their business planning, right? So let's keep going into it. He says forming a team really comes out of necessity. You can aspire to take on more business, but you may not have the time to do so. Delegating is key. And when you bring on people you really trust and who really trust you, your business can grow from all angles, right? Let's get into that real quick. All right, so here's the deal. You lead gen, and your lead gen actually starts converting, and now you have more business. Now you need to hire people. You can't help but hire people. You got to hire people because it's too much business for you to handle, right? So then what's going to happen is there's got to be these, like, there's a process, right, to onboarding your clients, to identifying their need, having the conversation, figuring out, how soon you can provide the service, what does the end result look like, right, and everything else, right? And if you don't have a system and process in place and you kind of got to make it up as you go along, then agents are going to, your people are going to get a whiff of that. They're going to get the sense that, you don't really know how to manage expectations. And that's really what we want to do. That's where the standard operating procedures come from, right? I could literally take an 8-10 point cycle and reduce it to 4 steps. Literally done it, right? And I'm continuing to do it now because it's about having quality over quantity, right? So if you're having more quality-centered conversations over the quantity, how many times you call this person, how many times you've engaged this person, but you didn't engage them in the right way, it's only going to put you in a position where you have to re-engage, and still it's not outcome-driven. So we can talk about that more in detail, but when you take on more leads and you take on more business and you can't service those clients, it's like, why did you? You should create a cap for yourself. And that's the difference between being a solopreneur and an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur manages and helps and leads people, where a solopreneur manages, helps, and leads himself, right? And yes, you help your clients, but you're only focused on yourself. I'm not saying that is wrong. I'm saying that if you want to scale and you want to do more business, you want to grab more market share, you really want to increase your brand recognition, you're going to need to hire more people. And especially in the real estate environment, this is where, we need that now because of all the changes going on in the real estate environment, right? So forming it, it comes out of necessity for sure. Then he says that, team aspiring team leaders have an abundance of information, education opportunities, marketing resources and more right at their fingertips, which can be an immense value in getting a team going. That's one of the many reasons why teams can thrive when aligned with Remax. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, right? When I first started out, I remember I worked at Halstead for a while. I remember working at Platinum, everything was provided for us. Like all the marketing materials already there. You just had to do a little plug and play, but everything, templates were already there. Everything was easy peasy, right? You didn't have to go make anything up. Then I ended up at, what was it? Manhattan was just like strictly rentals, no problem. Then I went to Bond. Bond was everything was ready made. Bond, New York. They had like 5 offices throughout the city on the most desired areas. They had an office there, right? And, everything was ready made. All the marketing material was already made. The seller's guide was already made. Buyer's guide was already made. Any applications, deal sheet, everything was already made. You didn't have to make anything up yourself. Everything was ready to go. All you had to do was plug and play, put your name in there, and then just blast it out via email to your clients. Maybe they do a little plug and play, fill something out, send it right back to you. Everything was good to go, right? Well, things changed significantly because when you join an office where, yes, there is marketing material and it all seems generic, it takes away from individuality. It takes away from, the uniqueness of what that agent brings to the table, creating their own brand. And I'm not saying anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with using, the agency's brand, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But if you want to start really building your brand and you want to start building your own credibility, and that adds and that, complements the agency's brand, you should do that. Right. And so what I see a lot of agents that they need to do is they don't invest in marketing. They don't invest in branding. They don't invest in themselves, right? Because they rely too much on the agency's branding, right? And yes, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start getting to a place where it all seems the same and the seller, a potential seller says, no, I've seen this one already. Or, a potential buyer says, of course, oh, there's another one. I've seen this one already, right? You got to do something different. You got to have a different take, a different approach. And that's how you do business. That's how you grow your team. That's how you stand out. That's how you really create your unique value proposition. If you want to get technical about it, that's what it is. It's like, well, everybody has a value proposition, but what's so unique about yours? Well, when you start going into the unique value proposition, now you can start going into your own personal brand, right? And that's what makes you different from all the other agents, right? And so Remax does have like their own marketing resources, which is great. And a lot of agencies do have their own marketing resources, which is great. But what does your office offer your people? Right? And what do they have in place to help them build up their own personal and individualized brands, right? That's really what's going to drive, new business, okay? Because, things are changing rapidly with the integration of AI, into, and I think with VR and AR and everything else going on, right? I mean, you got to be ready to go in that direction and compete and on a higher level, because agents that are integrating, those tools into their marketing, they're the ones that are actually outperforming, agents who are just using regular, branding and regular marketing material, right? So the agent of today is different from the agent of 10 years ago, okay? The salesperson of today is different from the salesperson of 10 years ago, right? You have to be able to, and that, Remax, they just have a bigger budget, right? And the other brands, they all have EXPs, your Elements, right? They all have bigger budget they could spend on marketing and advertising, right? But for an agent themselves, they got to figure out how to, budget for marketing based on every deal or every, on their output, right? How much are they setting aside for marketing? How much are they setting aside for staging? How much are they setting aside for transportation? How much are they setting aside for anything that has to do with the deal, right? How much are they setting aside for taxes? How much are they setting aside for other potential investment vehicles, right? All of these things, you got to learn, based on what your team leader is doing, what your broker is doing, what your agency is doing, right? And so you can get real creative around how to compete in the market, and how to stand out. And then a lot of times what you're going to hear is sometimes you hear a buyer or a seller or even an agent say something like, you know what, I kind of don't want to go to the big brand. I kind of want to do something a little bit more local, a little bit more intimate, a little bit more boutique, because I feel like you guys are able to support me more, right? And that's something that you find in local communities where, they have that access to the agent, they have the access to that agent's team, they have access to information, faster than going to a lot of the big brands. Not to take anything away from Remax or to take anything away from, the bigger brands. It's just, at the end of the day, it's really all about the agent and how efficient that agent is, right? So giving them the option to, use marketing and to use marketing tools to increase their brand and to build out their brand only helps them grow their business, which in turn helps, the agency grow the agency's business. You know what I mean? Okay. So here's the other thing. And I think we can kind of like move on from here. Last one is the brand offers timely resources, technology tools, and growth incentives specific to helping team leaders build businesses and helping team members reach their highest potentials, 100%. Plus, those affiliated with Remax benefit from aligning with the real estate powerhouse consumers recognized around the globe, one with the presence in more than 110 countries, within 100 and more than 110 countries and territories. Okay. So maybe your brokerage isn't that big. Maybe your business isn't that big. It's not as widely recognized because you just haven't been around that long, right? And maybe you've been around maybe 30 years, but you're somebody, that's recognized in your community. That's really what it's about, right? It's about increasing that recognition. And it's not just like, flying the brand. It's also about the impact. I think that's what they're not touching on here. They're not touching on the impact, right? Because some brands have a bad reputation. Others have a good reputation. Right. And whether it's a good reputation or a bad reputation, that still falls under impact. What impact does your brand have on your client base, on your local community? It's about impact, right? So yes, you might, see that Remax is a global brand in more than 110 countries, but let's talk about the impact in every single country. Right. Let's talk about the impact in every local market. You're gonna get a difference in opinion, right? So one of the things that's easier to manage is that if you have a smaller boutique shop and you have a team of hitters and heavy hitters, it's easier to manage the opinions of what's going on in those markets where you're engaging, right? And and it's easier to manage the impact. Right. So like I'm sure everybody wants to have the best impact possible, but when you start getting reviews, right? And that's what it's about, right? When you start getting reviews, you start to increase that brand recognition. You start to increase the impact, right, that you're having. And you start getting positive reviews, right? And you start to ask for that feedback, and you're proactive about asking for that feedback so you can be consistent about providing that service. You're more likely to grow the brand. You're more likely to increase the trust factor. And that's what it's about, increasing the trust factor. People might know you, but people need to trust you more. People might know the brand, but people need to trust the brand, right? People might like you, but do they trust you? That's really what it boils down to. One thing about having your individual personal brand, right? As an agent working for an agency that has an impact in the community, and the community trusts that brand, is really about how do I maintain that level of consistency, right? Through quality of service. That's what it boils down to, through quality of service. So you really want to go backwards and kind of like reverse engineer from there. Okay, what does quality of service look like? And then go backwards from there. And that's really how you create your SOP. That's really how you create your standard operating procedures. This is what we stand for. This is what we're about. And this is how we do it, right? So you'll find, like, when I used to work not-for-profit, that's the mission statement. You got the vision, and then you've got, action steps, right? And that's really how you do it. Google, that's an OKR, objective, keys, and results, right? It's all the same. It's just kind of like they just, it's put in a different language, right? Based on the industry. So all I'm saying is, for an agent and for an agency owner, for a team leader, you want to ask yourself, what are the objectives? What are the keys? What are the results? What's the mission? What's the vision? How do we do it? Right? What are the action steps? And then you put that together, and then there goes your SOP, your standard operating procedure, for every stage of the cycle, right? Whether it's lead gen, whether it's converting that lead, whether it's, cultivating that lead, whatever it is, right? And having the experts come in wherever you might hit a roadblock. Maybe you get stuck with pre-qualifying or pre-approving. Well, you want to have an expert come in that just does pre-approvals for a certain demographic, right? So what is that demographic? Maybe it's like blue collar workers, right? Warehouse workers, healthcare providers, right? Is there an expert that does and has loan products available for that, right? That has any incentives? Is there an expert that can come in, a lending expert that can come in and talk to your people about it so they can pitch it and start working together and collaborating? Because that's the other thing. It's about being able to cross promote each other, right? In the local communities, okay? And then you can expand, because like if you think about where people are moving to, and you're starting to see that, your clients are coming in, potential buyers are coming in. They say, I'm considering here, and this is happening a lot since COVID, right? I'm considering, Long Island or New Jersey. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I need to go get my Jersey license right now. And that's what a lot of agents do. They go get their Jersey license and they start learning the Jersey market, because they just might have to close the deal in New Jersey, right? And then you've got people who are coming in from New Jersey who are getting licensed in New York, because people in New Jersey have like employment opportunities available for them in New York, and they kind of want to live in New York now because it's closer for their kids' school or whatever it is. Right. So you've got that happening as well. Right. So again, one is, impact. Two, what not only about the impact, but, the reputation around the impact, right? From your brand, from your efforts, from the agents that you hire, right? And then where are you headed? Where's what direction is the industry heading in, right? In minimal time. Think about that, and then try to reverse engineer from there to create your standard operating procedures. Like, how do I convert this lead, right, within a minimal period of time? How do I, service this client within a minimal period of time? How do I give them the expert advice? How do I give them that white glove treatment within minimal period of time? Why a minimal period of time? Because that collapses time. Take all of that, put it on a pitch deck, and then send it out and blast it out to your team. And now you have a standard operating procedure. And then you focus on creating, that impact through developing your team. Make sense? I think that's where a lot of us need help, right? And that's where the coaching comes in, honestly, right? But we got to get past the recruiting stage and start focusing more on team building, right? Let's recruit the people, build the team, focus on the impact, create the SOP, right? And then get out there and start building that brand recognition. You know what I mean? And the last thing he says here is like, he was eager to help others. I think leading by example is key. Strong leadership creates a ripple effect that sends everyone in the right direction, Dukansky says, noting how team culture has direct impact on sustainable success. That's a fact, right? So you got to want to help. And, people will tell whether or not you're in it to help them or you're in it to help yourself. Just how it goes. When Dukansky started his team, he was still completing transactions while bringing agents on board and supporting their businesses too. But by being strategic in the hiring process, that dynamic quickly changed, placing him in a role more focused on support. If you build your team right, it becomes a well-oiled machine. And because that was the outcome of my team building process, I was able to remove myself from the day-to-day production, he says. Now I'm available to my agents around the clock for whatever they need. We have a lot of other leadership roles on the team. There we go. I touched on that. We have a lot of other leadership roles on the team too, and some remarkable agents who have been with me for over a decade. So he's got retention down packed, right? When you curate a group of talented individuals, he adds, the learning never stops. My agents really lean on each other. People with different levels of experience learn from one another. It's a pay it forward type environment, and I'm proud of everything we accomplished by working together. Outstanding. So this is really what it's about at the end of the day, right? When you start building your team, I mean, when I first started the coaching business, it was really because I did genuinely want to help people, right? I want to help people, and it was crazy to me because I wasn't doing anything crazy spectacular. I was just getting recognition. I was getting noticed. And people would say, yo, how you doing that, right? And I would just say, I just call and I just show up. And they're like, well, no, there's more to it than that. This is what I say, and this is how I say it, and this is what I'm looking for. And then, I give them I don't give them a secret sauce, but I kind of give them like an idea of what I'm doing. And then my whole thing is I want to help people. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking like I wanted to help the agents. I wanted to help the sellers sell. You know what I mean? Because they're in debt. And I was like, yo, let me just focus on helping them get out of debt. Who wants to be in debt? What if they could leverage that debt and go do something else with it, right? And that's what a sale is. Ultimately, when you're selling something, you're like, okay, I'm selling it because I owe X amount of money, so that's debt. And then you leverage that debt and you do something else with it, right? Maybe you go buy another opportunity. They call that's a 1031 pretty much. It's leveraging debt, right? And then you can like recapture time because you've leveraged that debt. You know what I mean? So then you figure out now that you have control of your time, you can do other things, you can sell other things, you can make more money, you can help more people, right? And that's really how I ended up with the coaching business, right? It kind of like I didn't realize that I had a coaching business until I started to help people. And I was like, okay, I get it. And then I started to help people, and they go to coaching, right? And that's still what I'm doing today. I'm still helping people help people. And that's what it's about. If you continue to help people, money, and that's the objective. I keep telling people, put the objective before the money, okay? Because the objectives might cost you money, but it'll also help you make more money. And what you're going to do with that is you're going to help more people. And if that's your objective, then you're never going to be able to run out of money because you're clearly you're driven by the objective, right? And that's what it's about. Are you driven by the objective, or are you driven by the money, right? If money is the objective, you'll constantly run out and you'll have to keep going after the money. But if you're about helping people, you'll help people both ways, internally and externally. And so internally is your team. You're helping people build themselves up. You're helping them build up their brand recognition, right? You're helping them build up their bank accounts, feed their families, put their kids through school, buy their dream car, right? All these things are objectives, and it's really about who they're becoming as they pursue that objective, right? And so you, as an agency leader, as an agency owner, as a broker, as a team leader, whatever you're doing, whatever capacity you're doing it in, if it's centered around, helping people, 9 out of 10 times you become something else in that process, and so do the people that you help. They become a much better version of themselves. You know what I mean? And we kind of need the problem so that we can become more innovative around creating solutions. And that's what he's able to do. When he was able to have 50 people on his team, I think that's a good number. It's a solid number, right? And if you have leadership people, if you have leadership roles in place, people who are taking on leadership responsibilities, you don't have to carry on all of that, all of the all the problems that come with that, right? Because you delegate them out. Now, a lot of people struggle with delegation. A lot of people also still love the game a lot. Like, they really love the game. They like to be out in the trenches. They like to be lead generating and lead converting and doing everything else that they got to do, right? And they can build their teams around, getting out there with them. Like, I think of it like this, right? The king of the castle still goes to war, right? Yes, he's calling the shots, but he takes the most heads, right? He takes the most heads, right? Why? Because he's still in the middle of it, and he wants to show and lead by example. So it's like, we're not going to fall. We're not going to give up. No matter what, he's going to continue to inspire his people on the field. And that's what it is to be a leader at the end of the day. That's what it is to be an agency owner. That's what it is to be a broker. That's what it is to be, or in whatever capacity you're leading, that's what it is to be that leader. So a lot of times, if you're still in the trenches and you're still doing the deals, it's because you love it. It's because you love it. Right? And anytime that you see your people are growing and they're learning from you because of, you're in the deals with them, it's because they love it, right? They love the way that they're able to learn from you. And that's the culture. That's what creates the culture, right? And so a lot of times when you think about where you want your business to be, the culture is going to help your business get there. A lot of times when you think about where you want your team to be, a lot of times it's going to be in the culture, how you get your team there, right? So a lot of times when we think about recruiting, we just focus on how many people are going to leave, how do we train these people, or I don't want lazy people. And it's like, no. Let's focus on the impact that we're trying to have for our clients. And let's teach the people that we recruit how to have that impact. Let's teach them how that we're going to create that impact, right? In our local markets, right? And how we can continue to grow internally and externally. Because if you're taking care, it's like your body. If you take care of your body from the inside, you'll see the results on the outside, right? If you take care of your business from the inside, meaning your people, you'll see the results on the outside, meaning the community that you serve, right? And more people will recognize your brand. And through that brand recognition, your team will be able to build their brands, right? And it's a revolving door, right? And so that helps you increase retention. And that's what recruiting is all about, actually. It's about increasing retention, reducing the turnover, right? And reducing the cost per client acquisition on top of that, right? Because if you can generate organic leads and generate referrals because of the impact that you're having in the community, right, with your local market, and you can also, get your team to start building their own teams, right? That's recruiting organically. It's all internal, right? You've got something that's sustainable and it's going to grow, and it's going to be amazing to watch it grow, and it'll sustain you through any downturn, The question is, what do you do with all the money? Right? What do you do with all the money? That becomes the question now, right? You invest it, you plant it into an investment vehicle that's going to help you make more money. Okay. So you'll get more content like this from me, right? And the next one will go up. We'll talk a little bit about we'll go deeper into recruiting. And I'm going to have some guests on. I'm going to reach out to some people to have some people come back on to the Bottom Line podcast, talk about their businesses and what they're doing. And, we're going to bring that back. In the meantime, feel free to reach out. Let me know what you want to talk more about, and I'll catch you guys, on the next one. First of all, before we wrap up, number one, we've got real estate webinars, real estate sales coaching bootcamp webinars every 2 weeks. Next one's going to be on July 19th, so you can sign up for that one. You can DM me on Instagram, or you can call the text the coaching line 929-268-5780. The $97 webinars. You get 2 webinars per month every 2 weeks. Do lead gen, cultivate your leads, convert those leads, sign up more listings, take out more buyers, create your listing presentation, your selling guide, your buyer's guide, everything you need. I mean, it's all agenda driven. There's another YouTube video that I will link that will give you all the details and what will be covered in those webinars, right? So you can sign on for those. That's every 2 weeks. We're talking, next one's going to be on July 19th, so feel free to sign up for that one. Okay, check out the website, DenisDevelopmentCoachingServices.com. And if you want to talk about recruiting, you can sign up for my recruiting program as well, my top talent recruiting program, to get you more agents, from hiring agents all throughout the country in every sales industry, any performance-based business that you're in right now where you need people. Feel free to DM me on Instagram, or call the coaching line 929-268-5780 for more about what recruiting, how I can help you recruit and build your team. In the meantime, this has been the Bottom Line Podcast, where we say what we mean and we mean what we say, because at the core of everything that is, was, and always will be, there will always be bottom line. Catch you on the next one.